And now we are
Wait,
live.
are we live? We are live.
I believe we're live. First take. Welcome to.
I would double check the YouTube.
I'll check. You guys keep
Yeah,
going.
no, I'm 99% sure. And welcome to Down the Alley. First take. This is PMAC, and I just got the YouTube notification. We are live.
This is Ted T.S. Spirides.
And Katie.
And a big week. Big Section 6 week. There's been a lot of anticipation. I know this for a fact because multiple people, and as recently as Tuesday evening, when Katie and I were out for dinner, having a little bingo dinner, on a Tuesday, ran into some DTA fans. A little DTA Nation was out and about in our neck of the woods playing some bingo dinner. And after the bingo dinner, they were like, Section 6 this week? Gave me the little, and I was like, you betcha. So DTA Nation has been waiting for this one, along with our friends at Old Southern Barbecue. We'll dive in. But any other, Ted, have you gotten any feedback on this Section 6 dial up here?
I'm trying to think. I've been getting a lot more texts, DMs, emails, any type of communication. I've been getting a lot more lately in general. I don't know if I've gotten any more Section 6 specific this week. Except for maybe one person, but they usually email us every week. So, yeah, I don't think I've had any more or less specific about the section, but it has been a huge talking point in pretty much every episode. We've kind of somehow found our way talking about Section 6, which I'm sure pisses everybody off that aren't, they're not in Section 6. But it, as I was going through the notes for today, there's a lot of good teams. Just a lot of the state's good teams are in this section on the girls and the boys side. So it is a big section. It's a lot of the big teams.
As a Section 6 contender, I'm going in. I took a peek at the notes. I'm almost going in as a doubter, as it's not going to live up to the hype.
I could see that.
Because a couple of these sections have caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
Or Section 5 was another electric section. So
yep.
I'm almost Section 6. We'll get into it, but I'm almost like I kind of hope it lives up to all this hype. People are Section 6 this, Section 6 that. I don't know. I guess we'll see, where it goes.
And something to preface all of this stuff with is like everybody wants to complain that like the MSHSL is out to get their team, but a lot of these teams in Section 6 have been together in other sections, and then when section realignment happens, they all get moved into a new section together. So like it was Section 3 for a long time with PL and Rosemount and Jefferson and Eastview and all these teams. And then you basically just rebranded it as a different number. It wasn't like, oh, we put all these top teams together to screw everybody over. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this section ends up being the least exciting of all of them because it's had so much hype that it ends up being like one team runs away with it and it's like, oh, okay. And like the other sections are way better.
It's going to be, I feel like the bar has been set so high, and it could be rightfully so, but I feel like it's going to be hard to live up to the hype. Not saying it won't, not saying it can't, but with all the hype that we'll get into and we'll discuss later, I feel like the bar has been set pretty high. And one of the people that's been fired up for this episode, specifically Section 6, is our friends at Old Southern Barbecue. The big man wants us to talk about catering. They got and we just used the great catering team over at Old Southern Barbecue for our DTA Coaches Summit. It's a great team over there. I can't think of the guy's name who actually dropped it off, but former lacrosse goalie
Sweet.
from Eastridge. He was
There-
the older goalie who kind of mentored Bixby. And I was like, oh, do you know Bixby? And then we started talking,
Nice.
while he's setting
Nice.
everything up. So I actually didn't tell either of you this, but yeah, the guy, Old Southern Barbecue, lives in like Shakopee now, former Eastridge goalie.
There you go.
I probably a new listener now, now he's like, dropping food off for us. But Old Southern Barbecue, big catering team. And I know we're maybe talking a little ahead, but grad parties. I think people start planning the grad parties probably
Yeah.
now because they're going to start.
We already got a grad invite.
Yeah, we're getting grad
Yeah.
invites already. So for those who are thinking ahead, like maybe I should more in my life, and you're starting to plan your grad party, hey, give Old Southern Barbecue a look. They do a great job. They've got multiple options. You can do, just a carry out. You carry the big order out, bring it home, all the way to full service. Right? They can come and be right in the weeds with you for your big party. They've got various different ordering packs. I was customizing ours. They gave us a great recommendation, and I kind of finagled with it a little bit because I had some strong preferences. So they can do stuff. We had about 50, 60 people. They can do 100 plus. So again, they threw in a couple of things here. Mac and cheese. We ordered that, and I was throwing the pulled pork all over that thing with a little barbecue sauce. Elite. They mentioned that. I added a little, stuff of my own there. They got sliders, wings. Have you had their wings?
Yep. They're solid. Yeah.
I had your wings at your house, did I not?
Yep.
Good wings. Same thing. They got a bunch of different sauces, sliders. What do we got here? They got all the cutlery.
And the hot links were like a sneaky feed a crowd. Like I know
those are my favorite thing that they have.
Yeah, but like I guess now that I think about it, that's a great food to serve a crowd because you can take one, you can take a couple. Like it's just a good party food.
It's almost like a filler when you got a bunch of hungry high schoolers coming out. Like, just grab a couple of links,
And one thing too that I really appreciated from Old Southern Barbecue, at least so we have had experience with them catering an event, right? And I knew that they were going to be coming at a certain time, and you kind of stepped out, and then it was just done. Like it was all set up. I mean, it was in and out. It was set up. There wasn't any headaches. It was on time. It was the right amount. It dialed in.
We had leftovers even.
Yeah, and when you're planning a party, whether it's a grad party or a coach's summit or whatever, you don't want headaches. You want things to be done. You want the easy button, the Staples easy button, where it's like, I checked this off my list and I just want it done right. And they delivered. And so I would recommend them for catering. And funny story, I think I mentioned this a while back. The director of catering at Old Southern Barbecue was my first boss at my first job at Famous Dave's in back in high school when I was 16 years old. So it was just a small world. I ran into her and I was like, oh, hey, what's up? So she's been in the barbecue business for a long time and knows how to get the job done.
Old Southern Barbecue, reach out to them for any of your graduation party needs. Catering at oldsouthernbarbecue.com or 612-240-1503. And don't forget to order the honey buttered cornbread muffin tops. Order extra,
so good.
Order all of them. We confirmed with the big man that they've got a special pan. I don't know if they've got a what do they call it when it's like you can't copy the design?
A patent.
I don't know if they got a patent on this thing or not, That's the question of the week for the big. I feel like I've got a question every week for the big man.
Yep.
I don't know if he's got a patent. I don't know if he sells I don't know what the situation is. I'm not a baker, but don't forget
Bakers
to order
and
those
bakers
things.
swear by their pan. Like I know there's
Yeah.
specific like like things of like it has to be the pan to make peanut brittle. It has to be the pan to make the like it's certain. There's a certain juju or like a seasoning that goes with them. So I bet they're dialed in with those.
Yeah,
They're so good. They're
that
so
pan,
good.
I don't know if they don't sell the pan currently, and they do have a patent on it.
Yeah, they should
Might be
sell
might
that
be
pan
might be scalable business model here. You know,
because
you can open
I
hundreds of locations, but you know, if you
Hey,
want
I
that
had
all
could
the
be a
people,
pan.
whole nother line, right?
Us,
Pans. I've got a bunch of rec tech knives. Maybe
T-Mac,
we're going to
you
come up
know
with
how
some
much
old Southern barbecue knives. I don't know. This is all ideas for the big man.
down the alley, yeah,
honestly,
down the alley.
T-Mac knows how I am with my bread making from my lady, and she's got a special pan it's that baguette pan I have to have.
It's a game
She's gonna
changer.
come out with these mini loaf pans. I'd get a special muffin top pan because I
Yeah,
like muffins a
yeah.
lot, and I like a muffin top more.
Yeah,
And
talk about a quick 50 pounds in
lethal,
2024.
lethal.
Oh,
The big man gives us
so
muffin top pans.
I know this is not a bread podcast, but my wife
It
was
could be.
connected to somebody through
Yeah, she got
school,
that.
and she ordered fresh baked sourdough. Like someone like in the neighborhood, like it has like their own it's called like a cottage kitchen license where you can sell food and make food out of your home, like your home kitchen.
Oh,
Like it's
sure, that's
some like,
cool.
so they have to like obviously live up to like health standards and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it was like wanted to support her. So ordered some sourdough, and I like sourdough and it's good or whatever. And the lady texted and was like, "Hey, we can deliver it. I know we said you know, Friday, but we can bring it on Tuesday. It's done." And Annie's like, "Great." And it comes, and it was still warm. Like it had
Oh my
just come out of the
gosh.
oven.
Oh my gosh.
And and man, I would say this might be a hot take for some people, but fresh baked homemade bread out of the oven is like top. That's a top
Yeah.
5 thing. Like it's just, man, it is. It was really good, and like didn't stand a chance. Like my kids love bread and butter, so
Yeah.
between the 4
You
of
love
us,
toast.
and I love toast, so
Ted loves
it
toast.
was game over. It was game over.
That's so good. I've I've dabbled in some bread making, and I've not dipped my toe in the sourdough starter.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
get
the
on that
trend right
train in
now.
2020. It was 2020 when everyone was at home,
Yeah,
and I
actually,
didn't get in on it, and I wish I would have. But I have 2 people on Instagram that I religiously follow about their bread, and one of these days I'll get into the sourdough. But
I
I made
think,
you that bread one time.
yeah, no, you make good bread, and I
It's
think
okay. It's okay.
I made the executive decision. We're not going to talk about Section 6 today. We're just going to talk
Yeah,
about
talk about food.
gluten rich products,
Yeah.
and different types of breads and snacks. That's all we're going to do.
So that
This is
segment
this
was
is kind
brought
of
to you by.
TMI, but speaking of gluten-rich foods, my mom, she's 65. She's gonna hate me because I know she actually listens. It was just kind of funny because she got a colonoscopy, everything's fine, but she said the diet leading up to that is like a low fiber diet, so it's all carbs. I was like, that's I'd be fine. I could get a colonoscopy tomorrow
Yeah,
because that's all I eat is
no
low
problem.
fiber,
No problem.
high carb diet.
On
So
that
good.
note, we're gonna move on from the gluten talk. That
This,
segment was brought to you by Old Southern Barbecue.
yeah, this is a
Uh,
live stream, so this is what happens.
One thing I did want to talk to you about, Ted, we made a sirloin the other night. How do you feel about a sirloin steak
Um,
in
how much
general?
PMAC? How much time we have? No, it's fine. If you marinate it, and you cook it the right way, it's fine. It's a
So
tougher cut, so
yeah,
yeah,
it's tough. So I didn't know what to do with the sirloin steak, but I made like steak bites
yeah,
with it in a
uh,
cast iron skillet, and I was really proud of that. It was the most
yeah,
simple recipe,
yeah.
but I just felt really proud of myself that I finally know what to do with a sirloin. Not a top sirloin, just a sirloin? Because I think top sirloins are even more tough, aren't
Yeah,
they?
I don't know.
Okay. That was
We've
our
got
recipe
another
of the week.
shout out. We're I've been trying to be nice to other programs, to other sports. The war with soccer is back on. We're at war with soccer. I don't know if it ever ended, um, but it hasn't been addressed in a while. We had a double booking with a soccer program, so I want to just shout out C3 Lacrosse, specifically C3 Girls Lacrosse. They helped us out big time. What was it last night?
Yep.
Wednesday evening. So huge shout out. They saved our last training session of the year. Shout out C3 Girls Lacrosse saving our last training session
Yeah.
of the winter.
Yep. Absolutely.
Section 6. Okay, I don't know if it needs an introduction, but this is both on the girls and boys side. This has been the section of death. I think the source had, or was it Ted that had something, a good quote, a good little thing. Ted, what did you call it, or what did the source call this
Yeah.
section
So,
6? I can't find it.
so to take, I don't know, World Cup soccer. Speaking of soccer, World Cup soccer, they always pick. There's always one group that has like all the, a lot of good teams or whatever, and they usually call it the group of death. But the source did say section of doom, which I thought was, I like that. I like that better than section of death. Yeah, actually, I think it was the big man at Old Southern Barbecue is like the section of doom. When he was like, hearing about section 6 and we keep talking about it. And he listens now. So, he's like, yeah, this looks like it's going to be, a lot of the top teams. So, um, it, I guess starting on the girls side, I mean, I think it's been, it's been kind of a 3-horse race for a long time. Um, I think I don't know, maybe is, again, but the cool thing about the girls' side of section 6 is it's been really competitive, but every year someone else has come out. Like in the last couple of years, it was Prior Lake, then it was Rosemount, then it was Edina. And all of those teams that came out of section 6 ended up in the final, whether they were runner up or state champs. The team that won section 6 in the last 3 years, specifically 4 years probably, has been in the final. So get through
Maybe
your
not
section.
Rosemount.
I thought they made the state final, but I could be wrong. But
Yeah, but that either way, that's a really close. If it's not
yeah,
them, it's
yeah,
very close and a kind of a
yeah.
cool stat.
My mistake on that. If I looked at that wrong, but nonetheless, tough sections can sometimes be a blessing in disguise. Because if you get through your section, you have a really good chance of doing well at the state tournament. And this has been the case for the teams in this section the last couple of years. So, I guess I'll let you guys kick this off on the girls' side.
Yeah, section 6. The source said 4 write-ups from last year's top 20. The source does a great job writing up, teams, kind of from last year going into this year. Like Ted said, this has been a team a section that's been well represented. They've done a great job. Whoever makes it out does a good job at state. And this is a section kind of where near we're from, right? Katie and I specifically, but Ted is right kind of down in this area. A big reason for maybe some of the South suburban bias that DTA Nation questions us with. But starting kind of at the sources, section 6, top 4. The source starts with Prior Lake, a record of 13-2 last year, lost a tight one against the Hornets. Last year, 1-goal game. They've been to state 5 times, state champions in 2019 and 2021. Katie, the Lakers, a program we know and cheer for. What do we have on the Lakers, and do you think they're the number one team going into this section this year?
Well, you gotta wait for my picks at the end. I mean, it's really interesting because I feel like sometimes I try to be like anti-bias and I try to be like not talking about them to try to be like, I don't know, the fact that we know them personally and, cheer for them obviously, but a part of me sometimes is like, we can't say anything about that, but this is their moment to give credit where credit's due. Absolute heartbreaker last year in the section final. I mean, 2 years ago, yes, we lost to Rosemount, but like the game kind of slipped through our fingers and we kind of see the writing on the wall, and Rosemount really showed up that game and definitely deserved it. Last year with Edina, it was like an OT upset, kind of a card situation. I'm not trying to be a sore loser, but like it was, that one stung a lot. And I think what I'm really excited about is a really heavy, solid senior junior class now that have kind of been waiting in the wings, and I'm really excited for them to kind of have this moment for themselves. Insane number of commits. Um, we've got, like, I mean, we could shout them all out, but
When I when
there's
I
11
when I
girls on the
saw that there
PL
was
squad right now
11
committed,
players,
and I just think that shows their passion for the game. I think that just shows like they're committed to the sport. They're ready to play at the next level. So they're going to try to work to continue on after high school instead of thinking that this season is, especially those seniors or even juniors, that this season is kind of just like the end of it. I'll put my stick away. They've got something a little bit more to work forward from a longevity standpoint. So I like that that's going to kind of keep the fuel in the tank um,
as a
through the
person
entire
like
season,
close to
where
this program,
sometimes I think it's hard when you have a really senior heavy team. They maybe kind of check out, especially if a lot of them aren't going on to play in college, or a really, really young team. They may be commitment or not. It's hard to kind of get them to be leaders. So I think my favorite things about the squad this year is that kind of the spread of talent and a strong upper class, as in both seniors and juniors. Definitely gonna miss obviously three D1 commits and D2 goalie from last year. I mean, you can't me and my goalies. It's going to be really hard to replace that. I think it's going to be a really interesting tryout from that perspective, and kind of a a phasing in of a new person back there, kind of helping out the D. Um, we have a really stacked schedule this year, like from the in terms of like who's we play big games. I think the first 4 games. I think we play Stillwater, Chan, Lakeville South, and someone else is like the first 4 games out of the gate. And so I'm kind of nervous about that. I'm not gonna lie. Typically we leave those games. Stillwater is always our first game. Typically we leave those tougher games to the end of the year. Um, and I just think that's going to be a really interesting schedule situation that we're going to kind of throw the wrench in. What are your guys' thoughts on that, or anything I missed?
as a person fan of this program who's pretty close but not in the program, when I saw that there was 11 college NCAA commits, that was shocking to me. Like I did not realize that at all. That was like I was like, whoa, that was something that really caught my attention. That was one thing that kind of popped out to me. One thing and you touched on it. I guess as we go through the teams, I guess we'll see if I still think if I agree with the source on be number one. I think them losing or them graduating their D2 goalie, I think that is going to be a stinger in this season. I think that's the question mark. Having 11
Yeah.
commits, unbelievable. I think their goalie is a question mark going to 2024.
I mean, I've said it time and time again how I feel about goalies. So I think we can all just kind of assume my real opinion on the thing of like when you get your goalie back, that's a big gain. And sometimes I don't know if it can make up for like lose regardless of who you're returning. If you lose the goalie, that's hard to kind of make up. It's not apples to apples.
Would you say um this group, how do I want to phrase this? I think you touched on it a little bit. A group of players that have been behind so many other good players that it's kind of their I don't even know how to phrase this. I don't want to say like their time to shine, not that they haven't done well and like I know a lot of them have contributed, but um something I feel like at Prior Lake that's unique on the boys and the girls, but in this situation with so many so many college commits that didn't have a huge role last year, is it's like how hungry are they to like finally be, varsity starters or heavy contributors? Like not a lot of teams have that quote unquote problem where you have
Yeah.
kids that are committing to college programs and not even getting to be a
A
starter
starter.
on their varsity
Right.
team. Is that like I guess I don't know like where
I
I'm
think
kind
there's
of
a few. No, I think there, Ted, to kind of piggyback and try to answer maybe what you're asking. I think there's two or three players specifically um, that maybe it's their time to step up or get to step up. You've got Sadie Shapi. I think that's one of the players. She's had an injury last year, coming off an injury. She's a senior now, sort of in the end of her sophomore season. Katie.
Yeah.
So she was battling injury as a junior. I think, right, her senior year committed, great. I think this is an opportunity for her to really step up, be a leader, take some games over. Another one for me, a junior who I think has an opportunity to take over, and I think it's time for her to really step up, and we'll have an opportunity to do so as Abby Grove. Has an older sister, has a younger brother, lacrosse family, sports family. As a junior now, I think she's going to have a great opportunity and, could really shine this year. And I fully expect her to do so.
I think too, to kind of comment, Ted, like I agree with you. It's like this is their moment, but also, and not just specifically talking about PL. I think this happens a lot on a lot of other teams where if you had a heavy senior class or junior class and you've got some good sophomores and now they finally get into that upper class, it's finally their moment. I think it's kind of a make or break. Like I think sometimes the oh crap moment, it's me, I got to do this, might take a while to set in. And I think specifically with our schedule, that's kind of where I think maybe the disconnect's going to come.
yeah.
Um, like for example, Sadie and Piper were the last two that were on the 2021 state roster. So it's like none of these girls really have had that taste besides them. So it's and they're both captains. So it's kind of I feel like up to them to kind of show and lead to be like this is the next level we got to get to if we want to get back there.
One thing before we move on to the next team that I think, to kind of play devil's advocate, I know we talked about having to find the next goalie for the program. They do have their entire defense returning, it looks like.
Yeah.
Um,
They do.
if you're going to have a new goalie or you are a new goalie coming into varsity for the first time, having your entire starting defense in front of you is probably the most ideal situation that you could be in this case. um, Maddie Sazma, Piper Green. I'm sure there's others. Those are two that were shouted out here. Both Division two committed players are on the defensive end. Um, you know, I think I think this might be a situation where, hey, we got to find a new goalie, whoever that's going to be, through the tryout. But at least they're not going to be getting shelled every game because the defense is going to be able to at least mitigate some of those kind of higher percentage shots to give them a chance, right? So I think that's a key point that I think will help Prior Lake as they go through the season.
Another thing to note, just because I know the makeup, something they don't have like a true star attack. They're really able to spread the goal scoring out. And that's something that's been really special to Prior Lake. I think at least for sure the last 2 years of no one's really sticking out from even a stats perspective, which can be kind of disappointing. But you also can't shut that down, because if they shut down one attack, there's 2, 3, 4 ready to go. If you shut down two, there's 3, 4, 5 ready to go, and you pull one out. You got a bunch of middies that can score. Like, I think that's something really unique these past 2 years, that like they're really able to hone in and spread the goal scoring across the board. And from a scouting perspective, I think that really helps them.
Really good point. Number 2 on the sources list, Rosemount, the Irish, a record of 8-7 last year, lost to Edina. Has been to state 2 times, 21 and 2022. They've, we'll go through these losses, but I think this is a team looking to rebound. Not that 8-7 is a bad record, but Rosemount. I think last year was maybe a reloading year, right? I think they had a big state tournament run in 2020. That would have been 2. So I think after that they kind of had a lot of graduation last year. I think this is a team primed, ready to go in 2024, and of course they get a DTA coaches bump for their head coach Kelsey coming on for an interview, coming to the coaches summit, speaking. Huge GTA bump here. I think the Irish are going to be back, ready to go in 2024.
One thing that I want to note is that, I don't get to watch as much girls lacrosse as I have that I hope to, mainly because I'm coaching in season, so I can only watch so much while I'm coaching. But since Farmington and Rosemount are in the same conference, I've been able to catch a couple Rosemount games because we usually do those like double headers. I was so last year specifically, but both years, I was so impressed with the way they move the ball offensively. They stood out to me from maybe my limited knowledge about maybe offensive schemes and sets on the girls' side of the coin, but it just felt like they really weren't a team that was just trying to give it to one player and run down the middle and take a shot. They had a lot of ball movement, a lot of cutters, and I was really impressed with their skill level. So, if they're getting a lot of those players back, I think they're going to be a strong team this year.
I definitely think that if it's not this year, I think it's next year. I think they have a really strong 2025 class from what I hear. Um, but I think for me, the thing for Rosemount is never underestimate them, because yes, in 2022, they had a lot of seniors. Um, you know, but at the same time, I think the depth is only getting deeper over there. And just a testament to what Kelsey's done too, especially in their youth and stuff. Um, but like I said, yeah, they're missing a bunch or losing a bunch is what I'm trying to say. But I think this year, if it's not a if they fall short from their goals, let's say, I think next year is definitely like a retrigger, kind of use this year as the stepping stone for the 2025 year.
And it does look like they do return their goalie,
They
who was
do.
a freshman last year, sophomore this year, Rachel Joseph.
And they had
So
a goalie issue last year, so I think this is kind of exciting for them to have a little bit more stability with that.
yeah, so a goalie that baptism by fire. We talk about it. It happens a lot with goalies because there just isn't a lot of goalies in Minnesota collectively. So you throw the freshman in there, let them learn, and now they're coming back with another year under their belt. And I can attest to this at Farmington. Our goalie started as an 8th grader, just was thrown in, and every year has gotten more confident, a little bit better, a little bit more skilled, a little bit more poised. So I think that's a good sign for the Irish on at least in the goalie situation.
And at rumor mill, it appears they may have lost a player in the transfer portal. On to number 3, Edina, 16-3 last year. Had a heck of a run, well documented. Lost an all-time game to BSM in the state championship game. That was their first time going to state. The source has them at 3. You know, just because like we said with Rosemount getting a year older, kind of building for this year and next. Edina, they graduated a lot, right? Last year was their year with the big senior class. Are they going to be able to reload? That's the question here. If they're able to reload, they could be right back up at 2 or 1. I think that's the big question here. What are you guys seeing?
I mean, they were we're talking about Santoni, El Busby, and Mary Vellner, and they're obviously Uma, their goalie. She went somewhere to play hockey. I don't remember where she went.
Yeah, Princeton.
Princeton. I mean, absolute powerhouses on your starting line that were just absolutely unstoppable. In which case, are some 24s and 25s going to step up? They got playing time. I know that. 2024 Mia Maxwell, she was out there. 2025 Lyric Busby, Elle's sister, was out there. And I think this Katie or Catherine, maybe she does go by Catherine, Ewers, I think she was out there too because I remember that name. This is the tale as old as time of can you replace the Gary Bertier kind of situation, and it's all 4 of them. Like, I don't know. And I look at them and I'm like, oh my gosh, 3rd, no way, because they lost so much. But as I kind of look through this and like, no doubt you can't just get there with these players. Now I'm kind of like, maybe 3's low because of like who they're gaining. And it's like, maybe it's the Prior Lake story of maybe these younger girls are finally going to get to show off a little bit.
I was thinking that too, Katie, so obviously like Santoni, Vellner, Busby, that I mean, when you want to talk about the midi ones, they were the midi ones.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I saw a little bit of one of the state games, and I like haven't seen anything like it before. I mean, absolute dominance and athleticism and skill. But
I think it's Mary Vellner that's really fast. No, it's Santoni. One of them is
Santoni, yeah,
the
all of them.
fastest people in the state of
Yeah,
Minnesota.
all of them were amazing. And the other thing that I think like why we didn't maybe see a lot of other players is they didn't have to come off the field. They
Right.
were that good, like they were that athletic that it was just like leave the ones out there, let's go. And so it's kind of like maybe they have this like stable of all
Yeah.
these new like
Yeah.
really good players that were just like, well, like I guess we'll go in when the midi ones get tired, and they never got tired.
Right.
So it was kind of like we didn't see a lot of what else they had. Um, they have, like you said, Mia Maxwell, 71 points last year. So she obviously was out there. Lyric Busby, 16 points, but committed to D1 Cincinnati. So, you have to assume that she's a good player, right? I mean, or else she wouldn't have been recruited to play Division I lacrosse. So I I have a hard time counting Edina out.
I was gonna
I
say the
think,
same. I was gonna say the same thing.
and like putting them 3 behind, in this list behind Prior Lake and Rosemount isn't really counting them out. I think this probably could go any one of. I think this will be a section that we all have kind of different rankings and picks, but um, yeah, I don't know. It's just like smoke and mirrors. Who's showing up for Edina? I think we're gonna see April 12th or whatever it is when games start. What they had on the JV squad or in the reserves on the varsity squad that didn't see a lot of time. I think they're a little bit like in Prior Lake situation where they just had to wait for a great senior class to graduate.
So far, Rosemount's their only one getting their goalie back.
Yeah,
So that
interesting.
I'm going to eat my words otherwise. Like I have to kind of go with what I'm saying, but
Yep.
we can digress. We can continue.
Number 4, this has been a team on the cusp. I feel like a team just clawing. Bloomington Jefferson, 10-5, lost to Prior Lake in the semifinals and sections. They made it to state back in 2011. A team starting to make some noise. Are they going to give her the hump? I don't know. But it seems like they might have a group here that they've been building with, a young group who's now becoming. Is it their time?
I feel like you're right. This is a team that over the last couple years, there's always been screenshots and links sent in the group chat of like, look at this score. That was interesting. Or wow, they played that team tough. Or
They beat
in
Chanhassen
in
last year.
in the case of last year, the 12-9 win against Chan, I think
It's interesting.
it was interesting. They lost a couple players that had big points last year, so that they'll have to replace that, but they do get handful of gals back. Kylie Jones, Beatrice, is it Rubel or Rubble?
Yeah, I don't know.
25 points last year. Molly Jensen, 21 points. They're all 25s, and then they get a senior goalie back, headed to Concordia St. Paul, Marley
Yeah, it's
Hansen.
awesome.
So they got a nice young core. They get their goalie back. They did lose maybe their top 2 scorers, but yeah, tough section. I don't know if the depth is there, but you're right, PMAC. It's a team that's just been, hanging around. 10-5 last year is a really good record. Do they have enough depth to get through some of these bigger programs, just bigger by school size, by program size, I guess is the question for me.
Katie, anything to add?
Nothing. I think what did the source say? Yeah, like or maybe Ted, you said it, like they kind of have been kind of just on the cusp of getting through kind of the big dogs, quote unquote. And like you said, that win against Chan, that's really like eyebrow raising. I think some of the game, I mean, like their game to Rosemont was 11-9. That's pretty a fairly close game. That it just this is kind of my maybe not like it can't be a Cinderella story because they're not like a 10-5 record is great, but maybe they're the ones that I'm keeping my eye on a little more than I think, or like a little more than I have been for good reason. Um, I think sections is where they really struggle because clearly a 10-5 record, they're doing just fine
I mean,
in
yeah,
the season.
I mean, their 5 losses: Rosemount, Edina, Benilde, Blake, Prior
Yeah,
Lake. Like,
that's a
scheduling's not an
respectable
issue
loss.
here.
Like, right, those are respectable losses in my opinion.
I agree.
And it's like I feel like they kind of just get like snubbed a little bit. I mean, like go Jags. I'm a Jaguar, but it's like we kind of I think we've played them always in the quarterfinals. That it's like they get their one, and then it's like then they kind of got to play Prior Lake in the last 2 years, and maybe it would be kind of cool to see them like a if it finagled the other way of the bracket and they could get into a section final, because I think a different team would come out if they could get through the quarterfinals, semifinals, quarterfinals.
Yeah,
I
and
always get
and,
those
and
mixed up.
looking at their record too, or like their lax hub scores from last year, a couple tight games, and then the losses against some of the bigger powerhouse programs, but against the other teams that they've played, they crush teams. I mean, they were winning
Yeah.
21-1, 16-3, 22-8 against teams that like in their conference, like they're in the Metro West, like teams like New Prague and Chaska, like all and they beat Orono last year 13-11. Orono was strong last year. I think will be strong again this year. So like yeah, right, they're right there. I wouldn't be surprised if it's upset city at least one game in
Yeah.
sections this year.
Like I said, they kind of can't get through that second round. So I'd love to see them get a little bit better of a draw and a better situation with seeding that they could get through and get into a section final, because I think a different team, I think it's like they go up in the season, they've got this great season, they kind of dip in the sections, and it's like, could they get past that little bit of a hump dip and get into a section final? It might be a different team that shows up, and that would be really cool to see them do that.
We've got a newcomer to the section, Shakopee. They go from section 2 to section 6. So welcome to section 6, Shakopee. I don't think it's going to get any easier for you.
Yeah, I think that kind of sucks for them. Um, Obviously, it's a little closer to home, I guess, like South suburban ish, but I think that's um, from a record of 4-11 of last year. I hope I hope this year they can have maybe a little more 500 record. Um, but
Well, it's a tough
I think
conference.
it went from bad
South
to
Suburban
worse.
Conference is tough. So,
Exactly, and now they have a tough section. So
yeah.
it's like
No, I know.
I feel like they've gotten kind of the short straw. They chose the short straw. Whoever chose for them, that
Yeah.
it's just like, that kind of makes me. I know we're kind of like, oh, Prior Lake and Shakopee are rivals, whatever. But I like when the neighboring town has a youth program that supports each other, and I think the word on the street is that the Prior Lake girl, like PLAY, we're gonna do their youth tournament because they always
Oh,
do
yeah.
ours.
Yep, we're going
You
to
know what?
theirs.
I
They're
don't
coming
have
to
to
ours.
drive
Yep.
far when we have a PLAY game, so it's like, and it is a fun rivalry. We went to the hockey game for the boys.
Oh, yeah. They
That it
whooped
is a
us in
fun
hockey.
school.
Whooped
Yeah, whooped
us.
us. It is a fun
Whooped us.
rivalry, and it's like fun to have different sports
Hey,
and that the
good barn over there.
schools.
Shout out to Shakopee. They got a good barn.
Yeah, it's a
Good
a
barn.
good rink, good little community center situation over there. So it's like I want to root for them when they're not playing us, kind of thing, because it's like, gosh, like let's keep the South suburban bias going. Let's kind of give them a chance. And I feel like they're maybe, I don't know this for sure, but it's like just give them. I know they don't have a B team, so it's like I would like to see their numbers grow a little bit, and putting them in quote this tough section and a tough conference. I feel like is just that's where I get really annoyed with the lax gods of trying to grow the game, that this seems like a little bit of a backward step to me.
Holy Angels, record of 7-6. Huge improvement. Huge improvement. They took a big step last year. Is it because their coach? Is it because their coach is related to me? Is it because their assistant coach is also related to me? I don't know. I don't know. There might be a lot of bias here. I'm high on Holy Angels, and there might be a little bit of, PMAC bias, 36 bias here, but a program that took a big step in the right direction, a program that I think is going to take another step this year. Excited to see what the program does. Holy Angels. Um, buy their stock now. It's not going lower.
Yeah. I I'd like to see Holy Angels be good at lacrosse, like really good at lacrosse again. I don't know how they've done as a girls program over the years, but on the boys side, they were really strong program for a while there. They've kind of taken a little dip numbers wise, but it looks like the girls turned things around last year, winning record. Obviously, coaching staff we're bullish on the coaching staff. Um, I'd like to see them squeak, find their way into the 4 seed, maybe. Maybe if they're the 5 or something like that, they get that 4-5 upset or that 6-3 upset. It's definitely can happen. And hey, I'm a fan, and I hope they do great. I call me a Holy Angels girls lacrosse super fan. They might have a Spreedy's girl on in the school on someday if all goes to plan. Uh,
Oh,
um, Potentially. It's been talked about as a potential option.
I
You know,
thought she didn't want to play lacrosse anymore.
uh, no, she doesn't want to play lacrosse this year. She just said this
Oh,
year, so we'll see.
oh, okay.
I'm just talking about for school, Catholic
Got it.
school.
Got it.
So
Right.
we'll see. I'm long ways away. A lot of things have to fall into place for that to happen, but I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the Stars girls lacrosse program.
Eastview Egan. Katie, I think you have some players in this program that play Team 36.
Did yeah,
They seem like a fun group. You guys, there was like a scrimmage situation that I came to like early last year, and they just seem like they're having a good old time, and they got a pretty solid team.
I don't remember what that was.
That was like the first Saturday. You guys are doing it again this year. I'm
Oh yeah,
99% sure.
the Chaska scrimmages. Yeah, they were there.
Boom.
Yeah.
Those.
Well, Team 36 has a lot of history with Egan. I used to have a lot of girls from the Egan team. And Eastview too now, but yeah, I think they, a respectable record. I think they're in there with the Holy Angels for me of like maybe I'd like to get them a little higher, like get that first round, get through the first round of sections, um, and get that first win in section and play on a little bit. Looks like they lose a lot of production. But you know what? I don't know. We don't really know about the rest of their class, but shout out to um my girl Emily and Team 36 Bias, and she's leading the team, and hopefully she can make some goals out there for them.
Love it. Love it. And I think that wraps it up for kind of like the breakdowns of this section to round it out. Bloomington Kennedy is also part of this section, as well as Apple Valley Burnsville, we believe, is co opt. Also, potentially, maybe Minneapolis. We're not 100% sure. Rankings. Did we lose Katie? Is Katie there?
Yep. We're gonna have to buy some time here, I think.
We're gonna throw on the Jeopardy music. Ted, you got that button?
Yeah, no, I don't. I need to figure out how to pipe in music. I think I can
Some
do it.
music or clapping
Let me
or
see.
laughing, some of
Yeah,
those.
I got to figure that out.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
good. That'd be good. We can start with our rankings. Ted, do you want to go first or should I?
you go first.
All right, I'll round this out. I am gonna go Rosemount 4, Jefferson 3, Edina 2, Lakers. I'm riding with you 1.
Oh man, this is tough. I'm gonna go Jefferson 4, Rosemount 3, Edina 2, PL 1. I really almost put Holy Angels in F4. They're 4B for me.
I should
Yeah.
have.
But Jefferson, Jefferson has earned the 4 spot for me, even though I wanted to put Holy Angels. They're my 5 if we're gonna go down to 5, but yeah, that's my final rankings. I can't, you don't get second chances of
Holy
the
Angels is my 5 as well.
DTA Nation. You don't get second chances on your rankings. So final answer, once you put them down, they're done.
I'm putting Jefferson at 4. I need a moment after I say these next 3 for my reasons, okay? I'm putting Prior Lake at 3. I'm putting
Wow.
Rosemount at 2 and Edina at 1. Because I'm sorry, we haven't beat them. Like, it's been 3 years.
I agree, Katie.
It's been 3 years since we like I said, 2 girls are left. Like, we have a coach now that was on the last state roster. That's how long it's been. And like, they beat us. They beat us. Like, this should be the fire. This is their test if they even listen. They don't listen. I know they don't. And if they do, they can tell me this reasoning. It's too personal. That's my reasoning right now. It's too personal, and I need to give myself a little bit of fire under my butt. I know they see the Instagram posts, so the crowd's gonna go wild. Like, the hair's on fire. Everyone's gonna be hating on me. But you know what? We lost to them.
That's
Like, we
fair.
don't deserve it. And for 2 years in a row, we didn't lose the section final once. We lost it twice.
Tough.
Like, I'm
What do they say?
sorry.
Tough but fair. Tough but fair.
It's tough but fair. Like, you want to get back there, you got to win.
Prove it. You got to prove it.
You got to win. I love them. I'm near and dear, but it's too personal. Edina and Rosemount, they beat us. They beat us.
Wow.
So that's my ranking, and they can hate on me,
Eh,
and they
no,
can
no,
listen to realize that I've been cut too deep. The last 2 section finals were besides losing Lucy, the saddest days of my life. And then we had to turn around, and the boys had to lose state. So the PMAC household has a tough month of June for the past 2 years. So we need to turn that around, and I hope that's motivation for them.
Now
to get back to the top stop.
Imagine being 2021 state champions and saying it's been so long since we've been back and we've had a good squad.
Yeah.
You have a state championship in the 2020s. So,
literally, yeah.
Yeah. But I get it. The bar is set high. I think that's
and when you've been there,
a tough but fair ranking.
Thank you. And like, I don't know, what does Dave say about his pizzas that are a low score that people think should be higher? Like, that's what it is.
Score
And you're right. Like, yeah, it is. And like, you're right. When you've been on that field, like, it just makes, on that last day of the season, it makes you want it even more. And right now, it's like, we gotta go back to the drawing board, ladies, because we can't even get there.
I respect it.
Thank you. Thank you. You might be the only one in DTA Nation, but whatever.
Hey, you know what? I respect. Yeah, it would have been very. It would have been on brand, not even on brand. It would have been assumed that you play the homer card when your team is in the rankings.
Right.
I played the homer card with Farmington, even though I do think we're going to win it, and that's what we're motivated to do. Play the homer card, but you took the bias out and you analyzed it the way you felt the team where they should be placed. So fair enough.
And you never know. I might be just kind of like fading the public, but at the same time, you're right.
Fading the public. I love fading the public.
I do think we have it in us, and I do think they're good enough.
Love fading
but
the public.
I think right now, as it stands, before the season, before we played them, Rosemount and Edina are above us in my mind.
Preseason rankings.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Preseason picks.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We'll get comments on the Instagram. Is it April 1st? Is
Yeah,
it
maybe
April 1st? No, it's not
if
April
anything,
1st.
this
Look at
is
your
just a
watch.
publicity stunt. Maybe this is this is our Bennifer moment of
Clip it.
publicity
Bulletin board.
stunt to see if they actually listen or care.
There you go.
I love an uproar,
Over
and I love to be proven wrong. I've said that on the podcast a million times. I love to be proven wrong. So show me.
over to the boys. If you thought the girls was wild, it might get even more weird on this side. And we're only an hour in. We could go another hour. The boys, Section 6, to Ted's World Cup of Soccer, the proverbial, that's a huge word for me, group of death, group of doom. Group of doom is Section 6 boys. And if the section wasn't hard enough, we're welcoming with open arms. Section 6 is a very welcoming section. I'm going to speak for the section. People, other coaches may disagree. But as a representative, and from my point of view, we're a very welcoming section. So we are welcoming with open arms Shakopee, our neighbors, the Sabres, and Eden Prairie, because we just love big lacrosse powerhouse blue blood programs. So open arms, Eden Prairie and Shakopee, welcome to our section. Um, Looking back at last year the section had 5 teams that were in the top 10 at some point, according to sources. Prior Lake, Edina, the Valley, Rosemount, and Jefferson. I would imagine Shakopee was obviously in the top 10. They finished in the top 4. So we'll welcome another. And Eden Prairie, were they in the top 10 last year? It wouldn't surprise me if
I
they were.
I I don't think they were. Shakopee for sure was
Yup.
state 4th place last year.
Yup.
But a program that was tough has had a lot of success in years past. I don't know if they ever cracked the top 10, but I would say they're a top 15-ish team,
Okay. Yeah, no,
in
yeah, for
the
sure.
mix there, right?
For sure. And then for kind of like the recent-ish history of the section, Prior Lake has won the last 7 Section 6 tournaments. So they've got Prior Lake, the Lakers, they've got a huge bullseye on their back. We'll go one by one here. Anything else kind of looking backwards on the history of the section, maybe the newcomers before we go into the
Yeah.
future projecting?
Yeah, I actually, this is crazy to me. Prior Lake was moved into Section 6 in 2016, and they have won. They have never not been the section champion since they were moved into Section 6. There was a time, I mean, you have to go back to when Justin Bieber's "Love Yourself" was the #1 song on the Billboard 100.
It's a
It,
great song.
yeah, that was, the #1 song in 2016. Like, that's when the run started for Prior Lake. It was Prior Lake and Rosemount was sort of, you could just mark your calendar for the section final for a while there.
2014, what was it, Section 3 back then?
It was Section 3, so they just carried that rivalry right on
That's
over.
our check mark. We bring that game up every week. There
So
it is. Every single
2014,
week of our relationship, that
2014, it was a
game has been
one-goal
brought up.
game.
Yeah.
1-goal game.
Ended your
The
career.
Yepsen twin off the
Oh my gosh,
off
here
the
we go
face-off,
again.
beat me off the wing, got a ground ball, career over. 13 seconds
Not
left in the
only do
section
we
final.
talk about this
2014.
game all the time, I've had the privilege to watch it on a DVD.
Oh, sweet.
Uh,
So it has been, it was Prior Lake and Rosemount. They carried that rivalry right onto
And
Section 6
Justin
and
Bieber.
kept it going. And then in 2021, a team by small town on the west side with a dream, Edina Hornets, they decided they were going to start the new rivalry with Prior Lake. So Prior Lake has lived long enough to have 2 rivals, 2 arch nemesis. In the last 3 years, it's been Edina Prior Lake in the final, correct? Am I correct about that?
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
You are
yeah.
correct. 2019, it
2022.
was Rosemount.
Yes, 2019 was Rosemount, 2020 no
Yeah.
season,
Yeah.
21 was Edina,
Yeah.
22 was Edina overtime, 23 was Edina back and forth, 1-goal game or 2-goal game. So with that, we'll start with the Lakers. Maybe I'll let you kick this off.
Okay, so the Lakers. This is a team that you put first on the list. Not to tease. The Lakers will not be my number one team on the list, and you'll hear why once we get to a couple of these other teams that I think are loaded. Prior Lake. This is your words, not mine. The king of the section, similar to playoff EP on the girls' side. I feel weird reading your words. Prior Lake seems to play their best lacrosse when the calendar flips to June. That's the goal every year. Prior Lake, it's a new chapter in Prior Lake. We introduced the promotion of Sam Kepner back in the fall. So it's kind of a new chapter, I would say, in the Prior Lake boys lacrosse program. We've got a new logo, kind of shared with the girls. This wasn't mentioned, so we've got a new logo. We've got a new coach. To tease ahead, we've got a new looking defense. I'm sure we'll dive more into that. Um, it's I don't know if it's a classic Prior Lake year where it just seems like we're trying to reload again, but it seems like a little extra this year with the coach and with the new chapter. Everyone's kind of having to step up, right? Everyone kind of got a promotion. It kind of seems like so everyone's kind of got to step up to the plate. Where do you want to take this one?
Yeah, last year they had some big wins. They had some retribution in playoff games for early season losses. I would say on par for a Prior Lake season where, lose a couple games early, even though your games started in May because you didn't play in April. But, kind of battled through some adversity early and then, like I said, playoff Prior Lake, right? It's the best version of yourself is in June. There's an aura there. And I think, but you're right, even though I feel like this is every year because you're a big program and have a lot of players, replacing Ben Mickett, do it all Mitty, superstar player now playing Division II lacrosse, the entire starting close defense, the goalie.
So I want to talk about the defense quickly. Eli
Yeah.
Herman, Marcus Levine, Noah Young. They've been the starters for what I feel like has been pretty much the 2020 era.
Yeah.
You had Kahlberg in the mix, right, in 2021. I don't remember, but for sure the last 2 years they played almost every minute of close defense. So Luke Bloomer, right, goalie as well. So it's going to be a new look in defense, for sure. So
Yeah.
sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no. I think obviously your analysis is great. You're inside on the program. That's kind of where I was like, okay, yeah. The guys in the AHL are being called up, and they're going to be expected to. Expected to fill those roles, and all those guys were great players. That being said, it's not like you don't have anybody coming back. Jack Taco, 77 points last year. Max Anderson, 55 points last year. Griffin Noble, a little lower on the point total, but played a lot of minutes as sort of quote unquote the third attacker or whatever you want to call it. So that unit has been together now for a season or two, which is always nice to have a group of attackmen playing together going into another year. You guys were able to have a couple younger poles get in the mix. Maybe they weren't starters, but they got playing time last year. Dylan Tushy, really athletic player, really good player. Maybe wasn't quote unquote a starter, maybe started a couple games, but not others. But it's not like he's never stepped foot on a varsity field before. So he'll probably, in my opinion, anchor the close defense. CJ Sheffield, we talked about him with Kaio, arguably one of the best LSMs in the state. Had like 20 points last year and 100 ground balls. So, he's going to be a huge piece. Cade Wozni, really good basketball player, great feet, starting short stick D mid last year. He's back. Owen Meyer, starting midfielder last year, he's back. George Taco, starting midfielder last year, he's back. So, I mean, I could go down the list, but while there's a lot to be replaced, there's still a lot coming back, maybe more on the offensive side this year, which is different than maybe like previous years.
Yeah, no, definitely. The returners, right, are coming from the offensive side of the ball. Like you mentioned, a couple of pulls coming back. But for me, I think my question marks, for the Lakers are, who's going to step up for pull. There's some wide open playing time opportunities between the pipes as well. Losing Bloomer, who played pretty much every minute last year and played a decent amount as a junior. There's a lot of time on the defensive side of the ball, up for grabs. And then on offense too, sure there's a handful of names there, but I think there's a huge opportunity on offense too. For players on that list that were mentioned to step up, kind of like what we said on the girls' side. Maybe you're in the shadows of a Mickett.
I was just gonna say
gonna,
that it actually
yeah,
really mimics, I feel like, what's happening on the girls' team, minus like the coaching shifts and everything, and obviously a little bit more finesse with the specifics of like a short stick or a long stick pull and stuff like that. And maybe that's where the girls' draw circle comes in because we're losing, we lost 2 draw specialists.
yeah.
I think that's what I kind of was coming to mind. Ironically, was like this is kind of really mimicking how I feel about the girls' side of like maybe this is their moment and their chance to step up, living in the shadows. Great song by Ashley Simpson.
Yeah, and yeah, and can't forget shout out Griffin Marshall, Team 36 bias. Earned a role last year as a freshman. Got some minutes towards the end of the year, was a big piece of that run that you guys had. And he'll be a year older with varsity experience too. So I think it can be looked at in multiple different ways. Is it, you got to find some deep holes to replace a starting defense, but a lot to work with, luckily. And, I still think Prior Lake is the team or maybe one of the teams to beat in the South Suburban Conference as well as Section 6. They have the belt and, we'll see if someone can take the belt from them. And I think that kind of moves us into, the title contender the last few years, Edina, a couple goals away from, having of going to state. It's been battles. And we talked last week about Wayzata having, like we said, hey, I wonder if any teams have their like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 scores coming back. And of course, I'm going through it today. And sure enough, the next week, Edina, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or it may be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. A team that did not lose a lot, a team that was really good last year in the top. They were a number 1 at one point, I feel like, in the rankings. They were in the top 3 most of the year and really didn't lose a ton.
Edina, the Hornets. I feel like this is the year. I think this is 2 years ago they were super 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 young. Last year, like they were, like you said, goals away, inches away. I think Edina this year is going to be a problem. I think Edina this year is going to win a lot of games. I think Edina this year is going to score a lot of goals. Um, Edina could be, I don't know, like a top three and maybe not three in the state, like preseason rankings. If you're looking at the whole state, they're my number one to sneak peek. They're my number one of this section preseason. I think they have all the pieces in place. They kind of check all the check boxes are checked. Um, they've got the staff in place. They've got the players kind of moving. Everyone's getting a year older. They've got a couple of losses, due to graduation, but I think they just have so much just getting a year older that this is the Hornets year to go on a run.
Yeah, and now that I'm kind of looking at this a little closer, seems like at first glance they're very similar in a very similar situation as Prior Lake. It looks like they lost a third-team All-State defender, Tyler Davis. They lost their starting goalie, Max Rhodes. They lost another Pole, Anders Gustafsson, and an honorable mention All-State Cole Brazel, LSM. So they lost 3 Poles and a goalie. I think they also lost a midi as well. But on the offensive side, Cooper Anderson, 60 points, All-State. Drew Stocko, 53 points, All-State. And according to sources, could be one of the better two-way middies in the state. Very, very good defensive player as well. But 53 points, he's on offense. Eli Bussey just actually did a write-up about him. Kind of has been under the radar. Really tough kid, super shifty attackman, 51 points last year. So they get 3 50-plus point scorers back. Freshman Luke Seaman last year, so he's a sophomore, 34 points. Lyle Dietrich, junior, 19 points. And then they get their Fogo back, Charles Vellner. Don't know if he's continuing to do that or whatever. I think he's about 50% last year as a sophomore. So someone at least is in the system to take faceoffs. I don't think they have what one would consider like a stud like Fogo. But he's back. A couple young guys coming in. They got a transfer from Rosemount, it sounds like, that plays defense to fill a spot there. I have no idea if that transfer was lacrosse related or not, but he plays lacrosse. And I think, again, like Prior Lake, goalie, they lost their goalie. So they're, what do they have in the system? Is going to be maybe the question mark, but you're right. They are going to score a lot of goals, and I think they pick up where they left off. I agree with you.
I don't know
Third,
if it's just your write-up, but an 11-8, what was it? 11-8 game versus Prior Lake makes me really nervous for your guys' section this year.
Yeah, in
Because if we
in
go
the final,
down the list,
yeah,
I know if we go down the list, I'm almost like
yeah,
dreading that.
and obviously PMAC was there. I watched that game. Honestly,
I wasn't there because I got rear-ended on my way there.
Yeah, honestly, I know 11-8 is close. It felt closer than that, to be honest with you. I mean, it was
I agree.
as close as you could be in a game, and a couple bounces here and there could have been a different story, but that's why you play. So, I agree. I think they're going to be, yeah, I mean, you're just going to have to find a way to slow them down, and hopefully they can figure out some of the guys on defense to replace some pretty good athletes that did a good job last year. So I think that's the big question mark.
on to the next team on this list, Shakopee, the Sabres, a border kind of rival, right, with the Lakers. 14-5 last year, had the best season of the program history. They got over the hump of their previous section. Going on a great state tournament run. They've built this program kind of through the youth. They've done it the right way. Tip of the cap to Coach Pollock over there. Shakopee. third on this list in terms of preseason rankings. As any big program now that Shakopee has become, big community, big high school, big lacrosse program, having some of the best players that have gone through this program. Linus Toward. I would imagine he's got all of the scoring titles and records for Shakopee. Had career goals across the state, allegedly, according to sources. I know that
At
ruffles
one point,
feathers at one point.
Yep.
So this is probably the best class that has gone through. Are they going to be able to reload? They have a mutant in Tanner Batchelor on the back end. Are they going to be able to reload on offense and keep this train moving forward? I think that's the question for Shakopee coming off the best season in program history.
Yeah, their season last year was such a roller coaster. I think, we knew they would be good. They obviously had a ton of 2023. They had a great 2023 class, but it started off, they get that big win against Prior Lake, first time ever. And then they go and lose to Moorhead. And then it's like, oh, okay. And they can lose to the Valley. And it's like, oh, okay. Is it falling off? And then they crush Lakeville North, who was crushing everybody at the point. Everybody's like, Lakeville North, like nobody can beat them. And Shakopee destroyed them. And we're like, oh, Shakopee's back. And then they dropped a game to Matamidi. And we're like, oh, that was weird. It sounds like maybe they had some starters out, but I was like, okay, like then now what's happening? And then it was a 6-5 barn burner against Chaska. Like they really sweated that one out in the section quarters, and then had a tough game against Eden Prairie, 7-5. It was a win, but 7-5 to Eden Prairie in the section semis. And we're like, oh man, like what's going to happen when they play Chan? And then they go and beat Chan in the section final, and they go on not only to win the section, but get to the state semis. So they win their first round of state against Chisago Lakes and lose in overtime to Lakeville North, the team of destiny last year. So the season was just like, is Shakopee great? Oh wait, no. Oh wait, yes. Oh wait, no. And it was a fun one to watch. You're right. They do get some really good players back. Tanner Batchelor, Jacob Lee, their LSM. I think he's more one of the underrated LSMs in the state. Super competitive kid. I think he's a hockey guy. So he's got good hands, gritty player. And they got Toward's little brother, Landon, now is part of the system. So I want, not to compare him to his brother, but could be, another good scoring option for them. And then this Caden Gunner, was a guy that took a lot of faceoffs for them last year. He wasn't their main guy, but they get him back. Lost a goalie who's been starting since 8th grade though. So do they have a replacement goalie? I have no idea. I think PMAC, you've mentioned their youth goalies have been pretty good over years past. I don't know what age they are, but that you had mentioned, but my guess is they do have a strong youth program and probably have somebody coming up. But like we've said, that's a question mark. And it seems like a lot of teams, there must have been a lot of goalies in the 2023 class.
Yeah,
but,
clearly.
So I don't know. Shakopee's always a mystery to me. It's always, well, I wonder what they're going to, be like. And they end up being a gritty team that plays hard. They play together and they make it work.
Yeah. Another, kind of off this list. I'm interested to see who's kind of coaching. They lost a coach to college. I think they had a couple other coaches move on. So, I think that's maybe another question mark of this program specifically. Losing a coach to college, like that's cool. Prior Lake is doing that as well. Kind of a weird random thing that doesn't happen every year, but it sounds like Shakopee's kind of dealing with it too. So that'll be another question mark and adjustment for the Sabres. On to the next team, Rosemount, a team we've talked about plenty already. And we haven't even gotten on the deep dive of this team, the Irish. year in, year out. They're in the mix. They're a pain. They're a pain to play against. Last year, I had my one half throw game, and my one half throw game was against the Irish. They just make you mad. They make the game hard. They've got good players. They've got an upcoming. They've got a great 2027 class, a great 2027 goalie. I don't know who their goalies are, if they've got one coming back or not. It looks like they may have graduated one. So if they have to start this freshman goalie, they're going to be okay. If they've got another one, great. That's awesome too. But they've got a good young, I know for sure, freshman group now because they won the U14 state tournament. Ted, what kind of in between that and everything I was saying on the young side, what do we've got kind of in the middle here for this season?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think they're always a team that, they're tough to play against. They figure it out. They got a good system. Kind of doesn't really matter who's on the team. They plug and play. They're organized, and they're a proud program. They were in the state final, maybe 10 years ago now, and have been kind of right there in Section 6. Played a lot of close games last year. 2-goal game into Edina, and a 3-goal game against Edina in playoffs. 1 goal to Prior Lake, 2 goals to Shakopee. A 15-16 game against Egan. So that was a kind of a high scoring game, kind of typical of an Egan game. They lost most of their top scorers and a really good 60% save percentage goalie who's been there for a couple of years. Really good goalie. So, got to figure that out. Connor Schauer, they return one of their middies. I think he's headed to Lewis next year, so he's a pretty good kind of D2 player. Team 36 bias. Shout out Nico Donati, attackman, lefty attackman. This Peyton Sickle is a sophomore. Heard a lot about him. I don't know if I've seen him. I mean, I must have seen him play when we played Rosemount, but I don't remember him. But been hearing a lot about him from sources and people. So excited to see what he's got. Ryan Blasiak, absolute beauty and hilarious kid. Good lacrosse player, good athlete. Had a lot less points than I thought he would have last year, but he was kind of a role player. I expect him to get more run this year. Jack Lenmark's a sophomore attackman as well. So, and then you talked about their 2027 class. So, are they in a couple? Are they like Edina a couple years ago? Maybe a couple years away. Maybe building on that 26-27 group to see what happens there. That's what it looks like from afar. They could have 10 seniors who are great that I don't even know about. It wouldn't surprise me. They're a big school, big program, but it looks like it's the youth of Rosemount that will be the focus for the next few years.
And we get through those 3 teams, and I was looking ahead. We've got 3 good more teams.
I know.
I don't
it's
even
crazy.
know where we're going to begin to get 4.
Yeah,
I don't know where you draw the line because I get to this next
I don't
team,
either.
the Valley. The Valley,
they're all good.
They had a few key wins last year. Jefferson, Prior Lake, Shakopee. They pumped us last year. I know it was 11-7. During that game, it felt worse than a 4-goal game. I know you said the Edina felt closer than a 3.
Yeah.
That 4-goal loss last year felt like about like an 8. And
yeah.
I don't know why. That's
Was
just what
that
I
your
remember.
first game of the season?
First or second,
remember.
Yeah. But yeah,
we didn't play till May, so I don't remember. So a couple key. So for the Valley, they lost a few players here that I want to talk about. And Ted, feel free to add on. Sam Arndt, he was the Electric Factory Player of the Year for Down the Alley Nation.
Yeah.
This guy sold hundreds of tickets a night just for him. There's grandmothers and grandfathers going to these games where their grandchildren weren't even on the team. They skipped their grandchildren's games to come see Sam play. This guy was an electric factory. Jackson Gilmore, he was a big Fogo. He was winning the ball so Sam could do his thing. Rossman. Where did Rossman end up for college? Is he playing college
He
somewhere?
has to be. I don't know. I can look.
An
I can try to look.
absolute unit.
Yeah.
You don't dodge. You don't dodge on the scout said. Don't dodge on Rossman.
That's what the scout said. No, yeah, Sam, I hope he works for XL Energy or Dakota Electric someday. I think it would just be perfect for him. Yeah, just a showman. And yeah, the other guys you shouted out too. But I will say, another electric player is still on the team, Carter Harris, who's
Yes.
been doing things for that
Yes.
squad since he was a freshman. Now he's a junior. Um, so I talk like, we try to bring some coach speak into this. But when I tell people there's a few players in the conference and in the section for Farmington where if somebody brings them up, I'm like, they're a huge pain in my ass. And that is the greatest compliment I can give because it means I sit here and go, how the heck are we going to figure this one out? How are we going to stop this guy? And it usually, Carter Harris is one of those players where you're like, can we just keep him to only score 2 goals and 2 assists, not 8 and 4, right? So I have a lot of respect for him. He plays tough. He runs his mouth with our assistant coach Chad because they know each other because their sons play club together. So in a fun way, he's always giving Chad the business on the sideline, but then be like, "Hey, I love you, man," and then runs away. And then he'll go just like, put a body on somebody in the ride or whatever. So a ton of respect for him as a player. This Tyson Bell, I think, just committed D2 somewhere. I thought I saw Alex Gilbertson is a big downhill midi. So, they're getting some guys back too. They lost a lot, but I feel like the Eastview or the Valley, I guess I should say, is kind of always around. They're a gritty club that plays hard. They want to win. Big coaching changes there, though. They lost
Just
a
say
handful of guys. I think they lost a head coach and an assistant, maybe the D coordinator, but another assistant, Jack Davis, who we know a little bit, is, I believe, stepping in. So someone that was in the system is taking over. So hopefully for them, it's not a huge, like a huge turnover or change.
Yeah, no, Jack Davis is the guy. He's an alum. This is a great hire. This was the correct hire. And I would fully anticipate a smooth transition. But yeah, another team, another program in this section, right, that has some sort of coach shakeup. So I would anticipate a smooth transition as well with this one, like the others.
Yeah.
Another team, another new team to the section, another team that has history of loving to win championships, loving to win lacrosse games, a coach who's been there and done it. Eden Prairie, the Eagles, 9-6 last year with what I remember being a young team. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but last year I felt like Eden Prairie was a young team, maybe a team a year away, and then a year later they get to join my section. Sweet, sounds good. Eagles, welcome to Section 6. What do you got?
Yeah. Last year, kind of looking at their scores, a lot of low scoring games. I think their youth kind of hurt them a little bit on the offensive end. They struggled to score goals. But defensively, I mean, they were holding teams. I mean, they're holding teams to single digits that were scoring double digits a lot. So Edina, they played them 6-9, a 9-6 game. Lakeville North, 12-11. I think they gave Lakeville North, aside from Shakopee's win against North, that was the closest I think North played until playoffs. Minnetonka 9-11, Matamidi 2-8. Maple Grove 6-8, Shakopee 5-7 in section. So, is it just a matter of and most of their polls were sophomores last year. Most of their team was sophomores. So really talented 2025 group. I don't know. I think maybe now they're a year older. if they could score a few more goals, they could have been 12-3 or whatever. Like it would have been a little bit different story. Max Kukla, amazing athlete at defense. James Anderson, some people are saying might be the best 2025 poll in the state, headed to Air Force. I don't know. There's some rumors of maybe an injury. I don't know if that's true. A couple people have mentioned that, but hopefully it's not true for them. Isaiah Hasenkamp, he did some training with us a couple years ago. He's like a really athletic, gritty LSM. And then they lost their starting goalie, but this Aiden Chapangian, I believe is how you say his name. Really good up and coming goalie for them too. So defensively, I think, they're going to be strong again. Kind of is just going to come down to like, can they score enough goals? Danny Burke is a super good, talented attackman, 49 points last year. I guess for me, the question mark is secondary scoring. Like, can someone other than Danny Burke, score 20 goals this year for them? I think they're going to be able to hold teams to lower scoring output, but you got to be able to put more up than 2 or 3 or 5 goals in a game.
Another team that I feel like has a bunch of 2025s that were maybe a year away last year, who I think is going to be a problem this year. The Jaguars, 6-8. They were 6-8 last year. They have everything back. They've got one of the best goalies in the state. They've got offensive players that are going to be putting the ball in the back of the net. They've got middies. They got athletes that are going to be up and down the field. They got pulls for days. Jefferson, do they check all the boxes to take that next step this year?
No team has more hype around them every season, I feel like, than Jefferson. At least for the last couple of years. Last year, I know I was really high on them. Go Jags. I'm an alum as well. And it just didn't quite happen. 6-8, you're like, oh, they're a bad team. Well, their schedule. Well, Shakopee, Rosemount Valley, Benilde, Prior Lake, Chan, Edina, Rosemount, like those are that they played one of the hardest schedules, I think, in the state last year. And the games were 2-6, 5-6, 3-5. Benilde beat them 11-1, but to hold Benilde to 11 is pretty impressive, actually. 9-7 with Prior Lake. They did give up 16 to Chanhassen. So like Eden Prairie above, the defense seemed to be their goalie's lights out. Bennett Lindman, you said maybe one of the best goalies in the state, could be the best goalie in the state. So that he's going to keep them in games. They get Owen Baker, Eric Johns back. They did lose Dane Miller, their once other starting close defenseman, but I don't think they lost any other players. This is like the same team. Kevin Graff, 40 points last year. Carson Weiler, 31 points. Jay Howitt, 25 points.
They've got one of the better face-off guys too. He was super young last year, I believe.
Yeah, he was a 26, so he's only a sophomore this year.
He's really good. Again, this team, everyone's a year older.
Yeah.
I think the window. So I think last year, going back to the tape, I was like, the question is, are they a year too early? The window, you could argue I was right. This year, though, the window's open. The window is now.
Yeah.
It is time for Jefferson. It is time.
And I have to shout out a couple other guys too, because Team 36, Lucas Whammer, Nathan Morrow, Jack Schwalbach, 3 guys that I think maybe play a little bit more of a role on Jefferson, but they are grinder, utility guys. Whatever Coach Cater wants them to do, they're going to do for you. And I think they add some depth to, some pretty high-end talent there. That, I think they started to contribute last year a little bit and will be a key piece for Jefferson this year. Like, it's hard because this section is so deep, but like they're kind of my potential sleeper team of the year. I think everybody last year was thinking they're going to be this great team, and then that 6-8 record, like, oh yeah, like didn't make it happen. But they get everybody back. Super tough schedule last year. The more I kind of dug into this team, I was like, whoa, like, I think kind of like on the girl side though, it's just like, is there enough depth there to get through? You're potentially going to have to get through some multiple top 10 teams, top 5 teams to get through to state. But I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. One other note too, just on this section before we wrap up on the boys side. So there's 10 teams in this section. So Minneapolis Holy Angels and then Kennedy Burnsville are also in here. 10 teams in the section. Of these 7 that we just talked about that are all like legitimate teams, one of these teams is going to be playing in a play-in game in sections as the 7 seed. So your 7 and 10 will play, and your 8 and 9 will play into like the 1 and the 2 on like the pigtails of a bracket. So what it makes some of these regular season games extremely interesting for section seeding. Like,
that's a really good point.
I mean, you could have a team with a legitimate winning record in maybe in the top 10 at some point, playing in a play-in game in their section, where they would be a 1 or 2 seed in any other section. Isn't that crazy?
So
That's
to go to
crazy.
my original statement, does Section 6 live up to the hype? I guess time will tell. Time will tell.
I think so.
Honestly,
preseason, though, I think it does.
Preseason, it does. Obviously,
yeah, for sure, from sheer quantity of contender teams.
Yeah, and I think like, I've heard some rumors about injuries and like any team can have an injury that can change the course of their team or a suspension or something weird like whatever, but like on paper it lives up to the hype, and I think it will be an entertaining section tournament. You got a bunch of really good teams, and kind of any way you spin it and look at it, it's going to be, in my opinion, a great section, probably 2 great section semis and a great section final, no matter what combination of those probably 7 that we listed. Maybe one of these other teams will upset a team, who knows? But I mean, it's just the depth. It's the depth of the section, I think, that stands out to me.
Onto rankings. I'll go first.
Oh, live stream just went out. I guess we're not doing rankings for.
I'll go first.
No one's watching, anyways.
And I don't know how to start, because if we're starting at 4, that means I have to like start making the cuts.
I'll start. I can start because that's
Katie's
how I
ready.
did it. Because that's how I did it.
All right.
I always go with who's returning their goalie, but that was kind of a moot point in this section. I couldn't really go to my default, but I did the cross off. Like I got it down. I cut out 3.
Okay.
And I cut out. It's a no from me for the Valley. I think they lost their guy. It's a no for me for Rosemount. It's a no for me for Shaco.
So what are your rankings? Number 4.
My 4 is, I have 2 completely different ones, and so I'm just gonna go with it. My 4 is EP. My 3 is Jefferson. My 2 is Edina, and my 1 is PL.
I have a question about rankings. Now that we're 6 sections in, I have a question about format.
Glad you're asking now.
Are we picking what we feel the seeding is going to be, or are we picking who we think is going to win the section?
This is who's going to it's going to be like PL Edina in the final.
So, okay.
So we're picking like Yeah, like the
No, this
seating
is like how
slash.
it's gonna end.
Yeah, but we make
That's how
like
I've been doing it.
pre-section rankings, or we pick how we think the
The
section
section's
will
going to
work out.
end.
We pick our section
Like
picks
I'm
later.
picking number 1 as PL, and they're gonna play Edina, and PL is gonna win. That's how I've been doing it. Have you guys
Right.
been going by seeding?
I don't know. I until this section,
Because
it
that
hasn't really
changes things.
yeah, until this section, it hasn't really mattered in my opinion.
I agree. I get where you're
On
getting
at
at.
least
I
on
get where you're getting.
Because like to
on
the
the board.
I see the regular season is gonna
Section 5 girls was difficult because there was more than four clear teams, but I I'll give you my rankings. I'm going by how I think it will be seated, and then I'll suffice the statement at the end. So I'm
Go ahead.
going number 4 Shakopee, number 3 PL, number 2 Jefferson, number 1 Edina. I think that's how that's how the final 4 teams in seeding will end. However, I think Prior Lake will win it because if history has proven it, they always win it. So in my head, I'm like, it doesn't really matter where PL's seated. I think they're going to end up winning, but I think that's how the seeding is going to end up.
Okay, so then you need to remember this for the next couple weeks. Like,
Uh,
should
it,
we go by? Because now it changes everything in
no,
my head.
it doesn't
No,
really.
it doesn't. No,
It
it
doesn't
doesn't.
really. It doesn't really change it. I just that's how I'm going by it for this because there's, and that's
Like
kind
you
of
said, it's
how
going to make a big difference in
I
their seating.
I
This
would
section is.
say that's how I've been doing it, kind of like how they would be ranked in the section, like in the seating. Most of the sections, the team I put 1, I think is going to win it.
Got it.
But in this case, it was different. So I just that I put a disclaimer at the end. People can hate it, they
Fair.
can love it, you can disagree with it. It doesn't matter.
They can decide if they don't listen. They'll just see the Instagram graphic and then they'll go
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah,
and then they'll have no reason,
it's up for
and then they'll have
interpretation.
no. We'll know if they listen or not.
Mhm.
I have no disclaimer. I've got no notes to add. My number 4 is Valley. My number 3 is Jefferson. My number 2 is PL. My number 1 is Edina.
I had something very similar to that written down. Like,
Yeah, because you had 4 things written down. So
I know
you
I
had
did.
4 different rankings. You had
I
every
had all the
combination.
combinations. There was a world where PL wasn't in it, but
They
I think I'm just gonna like
it's not a it's not,
manifest
this is
an
not a
Edina.
guarantee.
I'm gonna
Nothing.
manifest an Edina PL section final, and PL's gonna win again. And then I'm not gonna say what happens after that. Third time's a charm. Then they'll finally win state.
I don't know. I don't know. This section's crazy. This section's wild. Every year, and we added 2 friends to it
It's so
to make it even
ridiculous.
more difficult. So I think I going into it, I kind of was doubting it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was like, this is overhyped. It's just section 6. Like, what's the big deal? After going through it, especially on the boys' side, not to discount the girls. The girls is gonna be super hard too. This boys' side though seems a little extra. Is that what the girls say?
They
Extra.
say that. They do
Yeah.
say
They
that.
say that. I think section 6 is a little extra. So whoever wins the section, you should probably like get rings for it. You know, like how they do like winning your conference in college football. If you win section 6, you should probably get rings because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I got today.
One quick sort of not fun note. DTA Nation is just throwing out some thoughts and prayers for a fellow lacrosse player at the Hopkins girls team who got in a really bad car accident either today or yesterday, and I think is in critical condition. So just send up a prayer or thoughts to the universe for the doctors that are taking care of her and for her strength and her teammates and her family, and making sure that she can come back to the sport we all know and love. So DTA Nation, just kind of give a little message into the whatever you believe in the world, in the universe, good vibes, God, Lord above, whatever it is, just to make sure that she can hopefully return to the field in some capacity this spring.
Well said.
Yeah, nothing to add. DTA Nation's behind them. Anything we can do to support, let us know. And
yeah, we'll try to keep you guys, like everyone, updated on it. And her, I bet there'll be a carrying bridge set up, because it sounds like it's pretty serious. So hopefully she will be with us in the season to support her teammates at Hopkins.
we're with you.
All right. Well, Section 6, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully it lives up to the hype.
And we'll be back next week with Section 7.